Hello students. So once again I welcome you to my channel k.d.examsolutions, and today I'm going to deal with the poem A Tiger in the Zoo. So as you all know that this poem is written by George Leslie Norris, and here he writes about a tiger which is in a zoo. So he tries to explain the feelings and agony of the tiger which is kept in the zoo. Now let me explain to you about the author or the poet George Leslie Norris. He was born in 1921 and he died in 2006. He was a prize-winning Welsh poet and short story writer. He is considered as most important Welsh writers of the post-war period, and his literary works have won many prizes. His famous works are Finding Gold, The Loud Winder, Phoenix Living Poet series, Ransoms, etc. Now, let us see the introduction. The poem is written by Leslie Norris, as I have already explained to you, and it explains the agony and helplessness of a caged tiger that lives in a zoo. The poet explains what his life could be if he had been a free animal. The poet has tried to explain about the condition of animals that are caged by human beings for their own fun. As the poem begins with the first stanza, it says, "He stalks in his vivid stripes the few steps of his cage, on pads of velvet quiet in his quiet rage." Now, what does the poet mean by this? The poet wants to say that the tiger that is confined in the zoo, he moves around in the cage under his bright colored skin. He further says that the tiger can take only a few steps because the cage is small and it is not easy to move in it. One cannot hear his footsteps because he has very soft feet like velvet, because of which there is no sound of the tiger's footsteps. The tiger tries to control his anger by quietly walking in the limited area of his cage. He is angry because he is not free. Thus, he stalks in his vivid stripes the few steps of his cage, on pads of velvet quiet in his quiet race. Here the poet says that if this tiger was free, he would have hid himself behind the long grass near the water bodies so that he could easily catch a deer in order to have it as its food. Basically, the poet wants to say that the actual life of a tiger is to live in jungle where he could catch his prey and eat it, but the tiger in the cage cannot do so. In the third stanza, the poet writes, "He should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge, baring his white fangs, his claws, terrorizing the village." It simply means that the poet says, if the tiger would have been free, he would have snared around the houses located at the outskirts of the forest. He would terrorize people with his sharp tooth and claws. This would create fear among the people living in the villages. In the fourth stanza, the poet says, but he is locked in a concrete cell, his strength behind bars, stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. Now the poet comes to the reality of the tiger that is inside the cage. He says that the tiger is confined in a strong cell, which is made of strong building materials. He further says that as the tiger is behind bars, so his ferociousness is also behind the bars. He just stalks in the cage. He never tries to terrorize the visitors because his power is restricted by the cage. Therefore, he never tries to terrorize the visitors as he cannot attack them. In the fifth stanza, the poet writes, he hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. The poet says that in the night the tiger hears the sounds of the patrolling cars. Patrolling cars are the vehicles of police which are used to guard at night. So, in the night the tiger hears the sounds of these cars. He then stares at the shining stars with his shining eyes. The poet wants to say that the tiger is sad, and as he is confined in the cage, so he cannot do anything. Therefore, he stares at the stars in the night and tries to divert his thoughts towards them. So now with that we have come to the end of the explanation of the poem. But now in this poem you will also find some literary devices like a rhyme scheme. So which rhyme scheme is used here? In the first stanza the rhyme scheme is A, B, C, B. And you can see the words cage and reach, they are rhyming. In second stanza you can find again the rhyme scheme is same, A, B, C, B. Third also you have A, B, C, B. So as a whole we can say the rhyme scheme of the poem is A, B, C, B. Now another literary device used here is personification. Now in the first stanza you see the tiger is personified because the poet refers him as he. So here the tiger is referred to as he because he is a pronoun used for a person. So here now tiger has been personified. Now in the fourth stanza also the tiger is personified because the poet refers him as he. So in first and fourth stanzas we can see that the poet refers to the tiger as he. Now another literary device is used here, that is metaphor. So in the first stanza, tiger's paws are compared with velvet, pads of velvet. So there is a comparison you can see here which is known as metaphor. Another literary device used here is enjambment. Enjambment, in the first stanza, the sentence is continuing to the next line without any punctuation mark. So if the first sentence continues to the next line without any punctuation mark, that is known as enjambment. Now in the second stanza, line continues to the next line without punctuation mark, like sliding through and then deer pass. In the third stanza also you find the line continues to the next line without punctuation mark. He should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge. In the fifth stanza also you find line 3 continues to line 4 without any punctuation mark and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant star. So this literary device is known as enjambment. Now moving to the next literary device, which is imagery. Now in the first stanza, poet tries to create an image about the type. He stalks in his vivid stripes the few steps of his case. Now in the second stanza also we see that the poet has tried to create an image of tiger's activities like lurking in shadows. So these are called the imageries which create an image of a thing in our minds. Another literary device used here is consonants. In the first stanza, the use of S sound like stalks, hiss, stripes. Then the third stanza, use of the consonant sound S, again hiss, fangs, hiss, claws. In the fourth stanza, we have use of consonant sounds in hiss, strength, bars. So this is known as consonants. Next literary device used here in this poem is assonance. Assonance actually is the repetition of the vowel sounds. Like stanza use of vowel sound like I. So in his vivid stripes. In the third stanza we use of vowel sound O and I like should, around, houses, then bearing, his, white, his. Then the fourth stanza, use of vowel sound E, like he, locked, concrete, cell. And in the fifth stanza, use of I sound with his, brilliant. So this is basically the repetition of the vowel sound A, E, I, O, U. This is known as assonance. Now next literary device is alliteration. In the first stanza, use of sound P at the start of two words like plum, pass. In the fourth stanza, use of sound B at the start of two words behind bars. In the fifth stanza, use of sound H in the starting of two words like he hears. So this is known as alliteration. So I hope you have understood this poem and the literary devices used in this poem. So if you are new to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel so that whatever video related to your subject matter comes on this channel, you may get the first notification. So if you have not subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. So for today, we have only this much. So see you in the next video.